Best job I ever had.
Best job I ever had.
It's Bus Call with Corey Kent.
No yelling on the bus!
Without having to go out into a field and fake sing a song. Like, that's really what this is. And I'm pretty introverted, so I don't really like the whole, like, hey, look at me scenario. But I got to find a way to let people know who I am more. And I feel like meaningful, deep conversations or just interesting conversations are going to help do that. So this is...
George is the content king. He always wears me out, or used to always wear me out about content.
Because gone are the days of just being able to put out music, I think. And that's sad but true.
I'm up on this. I need to get closer on this thing, or am I good?
I'm gonna monitor you.
Okay.
I might have you get it a little closer eventually.
Yeah, I would say just crank his level a little bit in case that mic is not able to get closer, you know.
We're good. We're rolling. So
You can hit a bunch of. You gonna try to get a bunch of guys right here.
William Clark Green's next. We did a kid named Bailey Zimmerman last night. Yeah. We've had some really cool, and that's not just musicians. This is actually the first batch of musicians that we've got because, you know, my interests are broad. The first one we ever did was one of my best friends on what he's doing in real estate. And then the next one was a guy named Mac in New Orleans that was locked up for 7 years for manslaughter, which, I mean, he shot a guy in self-defense and then ended up going to prison, getting out of prison, and then becoming a father figure for the community and just keeping kids on the straight and narrow. And he's a dad and he's a husband. And so we've had some really all over the board, you know, guests so far. And we're just kind of banking these things. And we don't really know how we're going to roll them out or when we're going to roll them out. But I know that the reason that I'm sitting here talking to you is, one, because of music, but two, because of real estate. And I've heard legend of some of the crazy things that you've done in the real estate world. So I'm really excited to get to ask some firsthand questions. My first one is it true? I'm just going to dive right in. Is it true that you've somehow floated a cabin down a river?
Oh, I took one across a creek one time.
Okay.
An old 1800s took it across the creek. Yeah, it's on video. We got on video. It's pretty hairy. I've moved like 13 structures to date. I love historic structures. And you usually have to find them and move them to where you want them, because usually they're how you wind up with one, an old historic farmhouse or a dance hall or any of the things we've moved, is that they're in the way of progress, you know. So you can move them and save them and store them. And I love that. That's the other part of my real estate puzzle is I love old buildings.
Yeah. So cool. Well, so is that how that initially that idea came up, was they're going to tear this thing down, I got to do something with it? Or was it, I'm trying to add value to a property, let me go get something unique and put it on there?
Mainly, most of the old houses are really more of a passion project than about creating income. You know, I just love old houses. I always wanted to have a farm with an old farmhouse on there, but you know, you never could buy one. But I'd always find these old farmhouses for sale that needed to be moved and fixed up, and got to be buddies with a house mover, and I started moving stuff in 2011.
Okay.
And I moved a bunch of them I bought a ranch in Wimberley, Texas. I've had like 8 ranches I own throughout the years. I'm always flipping and 1031ing this into that and moving stuff around. And I started moving stuff there in 2011 and started doing a music venue there. And then during COVID, somebody approached me to everybody in town knew my place because I had people, you know, parties out there and everything. And I'd heard Paul Simon was poking around town. They were looking to buy something there, and they brought me an offer. So Paul Simon now lives in my farmhouse that I moved there.
How wild
and just recorded his new record in the 1800s log cabin that we took across the creek.
Did you get to meet him?
Oh yeah, several times. And he just played us a bunch of the new album the other day. We went over there last year, and he's still working on his new record, Psalms, it's called. And he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna record the whole new record in your old cabin here, but I haven't done the vocals yet, so I'll just sing it for you."
No.
And he sat there and sang for me and my daughter for about 30 minutes. Just started singing songs. It was just
how
I was like a little kid, and you know, my daughter's 16.
So he's a nice guy. Like, you guys are friends.
Oh yeah, he's been very cool with me. And my old merch guy still runs. He worked there at the property for me when I owned it, and now he works for them full time and oversees all their projects and keeps the place looking good. And
so cool.
And so that's just one of the weird real estate twists I've had in the last few years. It's
Why Wimberley? Like, why is Paul Simon? I mean, I've been there, but for somebody that hasn't been to Wimberley, what
I think it
is
was
so
really
magical?
his wife, Edie Brickell. She wanted to have a place in the Austin area.
Okay.
Because all her guys from, I think the New Bohemian guys all live there.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
I mean, it's become kind of like a little destination of sorts, right? Like there are quite a few Airbnbs and things like that. In
a
Wimberley
ton of
now.
people are living there. You know, my neighbor on one side's Kendra Scott. My neighbor on one, we got Paul Simon on the other side now. Because I literally bought right down the street when we sold that.
Okay.
I bought 87 acres down the street, and
so that's
and
your
then
primary
moved
is
stuff
in
there.
Wimberley.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any other properties that aren't Texas based? Are you buying stuff outside of the state?
No, I try to stay in my sandbox, you know.
Yeah.
Especially my region, you know, we got stuff in the Austin area, got a bunch of stuff on the square in Georgetown. We love historic properties, so I've got 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 commercial doors on the square in Wimberley.
Wow.
And 2 doors on the square in Georgetown.
So
On their square, they're all historic buildings.
and how long have you owned those commercial doors in Wimberley? Like, was this
I
something?
started buying that stuff in don't get me a line, about 2017.
Okay, so fairly recent. You
Yeah.
got into the commercial space. I've always been
I had
interested.
19
to hear,
doors, and I've kind of downsized a little bit on the commercial side and put some of it back into flips.
So is your motto? Would you say that you go make your money playing music, and then you immediately just go?
I put every single penny I own in real estate.
Okay, and that's just
I joke
the
with everybody.
system.
I play music now so I can buy more dirt.
Yeah. Well,
It's gonna be in a session. You know, I've always loved dirt and music. I've always since I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's tangible to me. It makes more sense than a lot of other things that you can invest in. The rules seem simpler, right? Like if you find a good something in a good area, it's pretty likely that that's going to increase in value, as opposed to I have no idea what the boardroom of Coca-Cola has planned for the next
Oh yeah.
3 quarters. You know.
I like tangible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I like investing in dirt, properties, buildings.
Yeah.
Because I can touch it. You know, my friends are investing in Bitcoin and stock. I don't know about that, but I know I look at that property and I know this is a good deal on this property. You know, I can research it. Like my buddies that are all into the football stuff, you know, they research the stats and everything. I can tell you what stuff's running a square foot in every single area.
Yeah.
That I invest.
Did it always make sense to you? Did you have like a grandfather or a dad that was in that world? That
None of my family
helped?
owned any real estate except for I had an uncle that had 100 acres, and we would go there like spring break or family reunion and stuff. And I was like, man, when I can ever afford it, I want to own some land. You know, I was just like, so immediately, and I've seen that with most of the guys, you know, in our scene. You know, as soon as you get the money, they usually buy a ranch.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at all Cody Johnson, Aaron Watson, everybody. We pretty much as soon as somebody gets money, you want to buy some property.
Yeah. That's the dream.
Because most of, I think 100% of us grew up pretty poor, you know, and never had a pot to piss in. Mm-hmm. And I think, to me, that was always the ultimate goal: is make enough money where I could own a place free and clear without debt and live there and enjoy it.
I'm interested with you buying and selling and 1031 in these properties. Do you feel like you have a system for financing things? I know, you know, there's a ton of different strategies, and I'm learning. One of the things that I wish I knew earlier on was money isn't math. Money has a different set of rules and how it operates, and the banking system, and being able to collateralize things and pull equity out tax free, and all these different rules. You said you like having a place that's debt free, but when it comes to buying other properties as investments, do you have like a system that's
where I'm different from all the guys, all the podcasts you listen to online. You know, they all, you know, put the minimum down and then they get it, you know,
refinance
the BRRRR and all that stuff, you know, the BRRRR method. And, you know, and I don't like that. My dad was, have you ever listened to Dave Ramsey?
Oh, yeah.
My dad was Dave Ramsey before Dave Ramsey knew he was Dave Ramsey.
Okay.
My dad has preached
Don't owe
those same
nothing to
things.
nobody.
Don't owe any debt. You know, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. You know, and you know, I only use debt when it's advantageous to me. If it's, you know, if I can buy a piece of property right now at a great deal and not wait till this property over here sells, you know, if I can, right now you got to buy it at 8%, so it's got to really be a good deal. You know, and So I try to always stay debt free, and sometimes I'll borrow some a little short term, but I don't finance stuff long term. I like to have stuff free and clear, you know. Know that no matter what happens, you know, when COVID came around, I was debt free. I didn't care what happened because I had savings and had the Dave Ramsey, you know, have a year's worth of savings and be debt free.
I feel like that's super rare in the real estate world, because it is what you just
said. It's all around on debt.
How leveraged can I be and still get out unscathed, right? Yeah. But that's super unique to me. I don't know if I've spoken it. So did you, your first property, did you just hit a lump sum of money and then you were like, I know what I'm doing with this, boom, pay cash, and that's how you got your first property? Or
the very first one I bought was in '97, before the music took off, and I didn't.
And what were you doing work-wise?
I was working odd jobs, just playing everything I could in town. The Broken Spoke in Austin, and place down on 6th Street every Tuesday called Babes, and Copeland Dance Hall. All the little dance halls I was just starting to play, and you know, I'd usually have to pay the band more than I made, so I kept another extra part-time job working for the Austin Chronicle, delivering the Austin Chronicle just to pay the band.
Wow.
I look back at the band where I couldn't afford to pay a band.
Yeah.
So my first band, I offered to let them in. I said, well, I'll give y'all, we'll just do this to Kevin Fowler band, and y'all will get a fifth of it. And, but they all would rather have their $100. Thank God.
I know. Yeah, right now.
Thank God none of them took me up on it, because you know now I'd be splitting stuff 5 ways. But but so in the early days, I was just eking out a living, and I wanted to start real estate, you know, but I didn't have any credit, and so my dad loaned me $30,000, and I bought a piece of dirt and built my own house from scratch. It took a year to do it.
So you're pretty handy too.
I just wanted to. That one I literally read books and talked to friends. We poured the slab, the plumbing. Talked to a plumber at Home Depot. You know, he paid him when he got tired of me coming in there. Said, "I'll just come help you plumb this house on Saturday." He was a old guy. He was a retired master plumber.
Okay.
I forgot what his name was, but he'd always smoke, and he always had a cold beer when he was working on the house. But we got it plumbed.
That's amazing.
Things like that. You know, I built that house and just got the passion for real estate and still music. So I've always felt like I've served these two masters. But for the last 20 years, really, music has really been the master, you know, telling me what to do. But now, since COVID, I do a lot, probably 50-50 on the real estate and that, because I just love them both.
Yeah. No,
I get up every day and work on one of the two.
I was so excited to talk to you, because I feel like I'm watching a dream path play out, and I feel like I get to watch you do it currently and mentally prepare, because I love real estate, and if I wasn't doing music, I'd be doing real estate.
It's helped a lot.
Do you, knowing that you do 50-50 now, do you base your lifestyle on one or the other, or is it just all kind of a big, this is, I'm half musician, half real estate?
I'm still a musician, but I enjoy them both just as much.
Yeah.
You know, there's people that's always, you know, will say, man, you have off one day this week, and you're going to get on a tractor or go fix a fence at the ranch, or you're going to put in a cattle guard, or you're going to do this, do that. You know, yeah, that's tractor therapy, I call it. You know,
yeah.
I love getting on skid steer and my new one now is AC, so I'm feel spoiled, and crank up the tunes, and you kind of blank out.
Mindless, but it's productive.
And when you're done at the end of the day, you've done something cool.
Yep.
Built a road.
I think that's the thing about music that I wish was different, in that you don't get the satisfaction of going, the job's done. I can look at what I just did, right? Like when you clear cut a field, or you build a house, or you can't physically see the end result, you know? So it's always kind of this never-ending pursuit of creation.
Yeah. But I feel like the music is, you know, and you see some, you just planted a pasture. I just planted 8 acres of grass this week at our place there in Wimberley, and you know, it'll, you know, next week the rains will look great, and I'll get that satisfaction. But when you have a big show, that's the same feeling me. Like we have a big show like tonight, Larry Joe, we're gonna have, I don't know, 15,000 people out there, and we're gonna spank them, and it's gonna be great. And that to me is the return for all the
nice, yeah,
you know, those hours you're talking about where you're out there rolling. And you know, you guys, the younger guys, you know, we came up, you know, the Texas Red Dirt started in like 98. You know, I was lucky enough to get on that curve to get catch that wave.
No doubt.
At the right time, you know. And, you know, back then we had to spend all week out there kissing radio ass. I mean, that's all we did is work radio, you know, and managers, because, you know, right then, you know, you didn't have social media yet. You had websites, and then, you know, about 04 or so, whenever it was, MySpace came in, you know, we said, what is this stuff, you know? But we had to go out there all week long and just crush radio and promotion. We actually had people still read magazines, you know, we had to do press. You know, there's so much now that you guys are all social media driven, and it's all, you know, streaming. And, you know, man, I just threw away, true story. We just took my skid steer we just talked about and dumped, how many pallets was it? Well, it was 20,000 CDs. We just took them and put them in the dumpster.
Of yours?
Yeah. We're tired of hauling them around because, you know, what do you do with them? People don't buy them.
Well, people don't even have cars that have CD players. You know, they stopped doing that.
It's just changed a lot. Y'all still work your butts off, but that's what we spent a lot of our time doing. You know, 20 years ago was working radio. You know, I had a big major label deal, went through that whole deal, and they worked you like a dog.
I was gonna ask, what was your experience like being a major label artist? Was it just exhausting, or were there parts of it you really enjoyed? And having a bigger team, obviously.
I've killed more record labels than you can imagine. First, we had one here in Texas when it all started. We were all doing CDs, and there was a company called Southwest Wholesale here in town, you know, or in Houston, sorry. And they would distribute it, and they would do a consignment deal. You give them the CDs, they were costing us $1.15 to make. They were selling them for something. We were making $8 a pop, and man, we were crushing it. Beer Bait and Ammo came out. You know, I was just hoping to sell 1,000 units to break even. You know, we sold 50,000 units on my own before we did anything.
That's a lot.
And it was all cash. You know, you can't get that anymore either.
No.
But it was like, it was huge, you know. So CDs were king back then. I kind of lost my train of thought, but you know, we always kept, you know, all the CDs. You know, selling merch was cash. You never reported anything. It was awesome. It was a great business model.
No doubt. I mean, and you have one big song. Like, even if that was the only big song on the record, to get that song, that person had to buy that CD. So you're selling 8 songs. They might only want the one, but you give them 8, and you get paid for 8. And that is, I do think
it was 10 or 12 songs back then. 8 was like an EP back then.
Yeah, now 8's an LP, qualified as an LP. It's a different world, and I think I oftentimes think about what would it be like to have had the success we're having now in an era where I feel like it was a more fairly compensated thing. You know, I mean, you've seen your streaming royalties.
It's always been hard, you know. Music business is just hard. I like about it now is that there are no gatekeepers anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be the labels and the radio stations owned your career. You were indebted to them. You couldn't get past them. I mean, look at all the guys like yourself. Y'all built this on your own, online. Nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can take away your fans from you unless you do something really stupid or you stop turning out good music, you know. And back then, you know, if the label said you were done, and I played with a big rock band, and it's like the label said they were done, you know. And you had no control. But nowadays, like you guys, man, look at all these guys, Cody Jinks, yourself, man, Coetzel, all these guys, everybody in this whole scene started out, you know, not having any radio.
Yeah.
Especially those two guys. They're selling arenas with 0 radio. I don't know if you can do negative radio, less than none. And they're still doing crazy numbers and sell more seats than people that are getting number ones on the radio.
I'm watching it happen in real time right now. And it's been an interesting shift in music, I think, especially the streaming and radio world, as, you know, radio was still here and streaming was catching up. And now it seems to be streaming seems to be driving a majority. The reason I say that is because I am watching number 1 hits that people don't sing along to live. Like, that is mind-blowing to me, that you can have the number 1 most played song in country music and you can go play to an arena full of people and nobody can care. That just proves that a hit is different from a number 1.
Well, those hits aren't so many radio hits I saw during the radio business, and if you've done much radio, or the guys at the management company who told you much about it. I mean, so many hits are manufactured. They aren't really like people call in and request a song. They're done by all the favors and the back scratching and come and playing acoustic at their 80-man jams or whatever they are. You know, they're different things, and they aren't real like a lot of songs. You know, but one thing about streaming, it doesn't lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's one listen, one point.
Yep.
You know, it's like. But with radio and a lot of the other older formats, you know, it wasn't legit. So a lot of those artists, I know a lot of these guys,
mm-hmm.
you know, that came out when I did, that did the major label route and had hits, and can barely make a living. You know, it's just we've been blessed at what we have here. First off, in the Texas scene,
No
you know,
doubt.
it's like that you can stay here, and you know, I'm almost 58, and I can play music full time and make a great living. And I'll do 80% of my shows are in the state.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so we've been blessed with this scene here, you know. And
really,
it's cool being able to see it. I was telling about it this other day. Of just see how it just keeps Texas music just keeps on keeping on. I mean, from way back to the old Bob Wills days, you know, it just kept on. But through the outlaw music days in the '70s, you know, and that whole thing, and you know, before Pat blew up our whole scene, you know, and it got huge. You know, you had Robert Earls and you had your Lyle Lovetts and you had all that scene, and you know, just it's cool to see how it just keeps reinventing itself.
Yes.
And even like I lost the class of 2000, like me and Pat and Corey and Roger Krager, Cross Canadian Ragweed, Jason Boland. There's a whole bucket of us, you know, that really came out in that first wave. And man, it's just cool to see all these waves, you know. And then Randy and those guys came. They brought it down the road a ways, and then in come
Parker,
you know,
and Kojo
Parker
and Co.
Kojo, and then another wave of it, and Cody Jinks, and
yeah,
it just keeps on keeping on. And nobody sounds the same. If you think about it, people ask me, well, what is Texas Red Dirt music? And it's anything you want it to be.
Yeah, as long as the fans relate to it, it is whatever's
like
from here.
Me, Watson, and you know, Kojo, and we're all doing the more countryer thing. And then you had on their side, you've practically hard rock bands, and they're all playing the same shows, the same arenas.
Yep. I said on Twitter before it was X, I said, rock and roll ain't dead, it just moved to Texas. Because when you think about the rock and roll scene, there's not a lot of rock radio anymore. There's not a lot of rock venues anymore. But what I've seen is that rock music has kind of found a lane in country. Like Co Wetzel's a great example of that. I think Whiskey Myers is a great example of that. You're seeing this southern rock movement that's being considered country
something that
music.
I forgot to mention. You know,
yeah, Whiskey
Myers.
Done a huge.
They're selling out arenas and sheds every friggin' night.
It's amazing.
And it's cool seeing them come up. You know, they were AAA since day one, and you know, I mean, they were just coming out of high school, and see how they were the little engine that could.
Yeah.
They just would never give up. They just kept on keeping on. All the guys, Randall King's now kicking ass. All these guys, and seeing Cody, you know, I first met Cody Johnson. He's been really cool and paid me back in tenfold of all stuff. I tried to help him in the early days. You know, I had him on Fowler Fest, and I'd never heard of him before. And I was laying in the back lounge taking a nap because we just drove in from somewhere. I said, who the hell is that singing? Holy shit.
He can sing.
Cracked up the window in the back lounge and listened to what said. I was like, this guy's good. And I made it that
one of the best
night.
live vocalists I've ever heard.
Yeah, we got to be buddies, and just like, this guy's going to do something. And he just, same way. He just kept on keeping on.
It seems to be a theme where if you come out of this scene, you might have a little bit of a longer path to get the recognition that you probably have deserved. But all along the way, you've got this cult mob fan base that is supporting you every step of the way. So you don't really need the recognition. It's just nice when you finally get it. When Cody finally gets realized at the award shows, and we're all sitting here going, we've been listening to this stuff for 10 plus years, and thank you for finally realizing greatness and not discounting it or discrediting it because of where it's not from, you know? I think it's really, to me, being like one of the next crops of artists that live here in Texas. My whole band and crew were from Oklahoma, so it's a homegrown operation. We put out a song independently. Never imagined that it could exceed. I mean, it just blew up. It became our first #1 hit, our first platinum single, off of an independent release from a guy who was working at a pavement company when he recorded it. Like that, in my opinion, if I live anywhere else in the country, I don't think that song does what it does. I think that the fan base that we were cultivating here gave it the legs that it needed to really go nationwide. Yeah. And I think it's time and time again, like you said, it takes maybe a little or maybe sometimes a lot longer to get the recognition.
Yeah.
But
it's the hard way. It's getting, it's not an overnight thing, But the good thing about it, if it goes up slow, it comes down slow, But the guys are just feeling, I've seen it a million times, even bands I've been in, like I said, they didn't build a fan base. They just had some hits, and they're trying to tour on those, after the label's done with you or radio's done with you. But when you like being what we have going, it's when you build a fan base, like I said, nobody can take that away from you, and you got some longevity. Now you got some longevity.
What do you think fans, when you started to realize, okay, I went from being a guy that's playing some shows in Texas to a guy that has a fan base in Texas? What do you think it was about you that they were resonating with, that they were going, I want to be a Kevin Fowler fan? Because at a certain point, people start identifying with your brand, and they start wanting to wear the T-shirt, and they want to buy they want to buy the ticket every time the show comes to town. What was your thing that made people buy in? Did you feel like you had a brand identifying?
I think a lot of the whole scene people were buying into, because right then people were really just sick and tired of what was going on with radio and that, and we were given this alternative. And also, so much of this would never happen. None of this, you wouldn't be sitting here, any of it, if it wasn't for the internet, And I don't think it's any coincidence that the rise of regional music and the internet coming on the scene and people being able to circumvent the system, I don't think it's a coincidence that they built it. You wouldn't have this without the internet, especially social media, and but I think a lot of it was what people were really, the Red Dirt scene was something fresh and new, and it wasn't. Nobody sounded alike, and everybody doing their own thing. And we just got out there, and I just tried to make fans every night, And so for 18 years, I'm at the merch booth every single night. And everybody go, let's go party at the bar after as soon as I get done with merch. But our merch numbers reflected it, and a fan, what's the word, recidivism, they kept coming back.
Yeah.
That way we had fans would come to 5-6 shows a year.
Yeah. And I feel like you've built a fan base that will travel with you. Like, I've seen and heard that there are Kevin Fowler fans that will follow multiple shows, right? Like, just you're going to play in Abilene, and then you're going to go play in Dallas, and then you're going to go play in Louisiana, and they're going to be at all the shows. Yeah. Is that, you feel like that's a result of?
Yeah, and I think everybody in our scene has a lot of that. Those diehard fans that just go there and spread the word for you and support you no matter what. No matter what you do.
Did what size venues were you playing when you were still going out to the merch booth every night? What was the biggest venue?
I still do it. I try to do it every night now. Until COVID, I did every night, single night, and then COVID, you couldn't do it anymore, and so I got a little lazy then. But now I've got back into it where I do it almost every night.
Even at festivals, do you do that?
Not as much at festivals, because it's kind of harder, because you kind of throw a kink in it. But I used to do it every single night. Even here, Larry Joe did it for every year. But I'm not as diehard about it now as I used to be. But not because I'm lazy, just because it's kind of changed since COVID,
Yeah.
But I still do it probably over half the time.
Wow. Yeah, I remember hearing a story about Garth doing that at the arena level, and you look at fan base. I mean, that guy's he could write a textbook on how to build a fan base.
And who I stole that from is when I was just getting started. I went to a lot of Willie Nelson shows. Anytime I could see Willie, I went and saw him at Stubbs in Austin. And after the show, we're just walking down the sidewalk, and there's this tour bus there, and there's a line of people, 100 deep, and Willie's down outside the tour bus to sign autographs. Every night he would do that.
That's amazing.
And he was Willie. This was 20 years ago. He was a spry 70, you know,
Yeah, well,
he,
he's a
he,
living
and he would
legend at
still
that.
he was still doing it. He didn't have to do it, and
Right.
he would just do it every night.
I have a
Built a loyal fan base, and he hadn't had none on the radio at the time in 20 years.
So you mentioned two things, and I feel like I'm obligated now to tell you a story, because the first thing you mentioned was Bob Wills. I grew up playing Western swing music. That's how I got my start. Age 11 to 16 was in a Western swing band, and we would play our first show ever. We opened for Asleep at the Wheel and the Texas Playboys at Kane's Ballroom.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
11 years
Nice.
old, scared out of my mind, trying to remember the words to music that these two Western Swing Hall of Famers taught a bunch of kids to carry on the tradition, to pass the torch of this music.
And
that-
you're at the Holy Grail.
And we're at-
Canes is the Holy Grail.
It's the-
The
yeah.
swing. It's like the Green Hall of Oklahoma. It's
It is.
It's the
Yeah.
Holy Grail of swing music.
Right. And I'm from Bixby, which is just south of Tulsa. And so that was the venue. Like, when we first sold out Kane's Ballroom, I was like, I can die happy now. Like, we played a show and we sold it out, and that was the pinnacle of music for me, especially as a kid. It was the venue that I would stand outside and listen to through the walls because I couldn't get in. It was everything. But that Western swing background led me to, when I was 16, Willie Nelson was coming through town, and he was playing at a place I don't think that exists anymore, a venue called the Spirit Bank Event Center in Tulsa. And I knew he had his son Lucas was playing guitar for him. He had Mickey with him. I mean, it was family band, and my grandfather was going to the show. He's the biggest Willie fan you have ever met. Has more memorabilia and signed guitars. I mean, Willie's just his dude. And Maker's Mark and Willie Nelson are the two top things in his life. Okay.
I like him already.
Yeah, you would love this guy, and he's in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, which is where most of my family's from. But he was coming up to Tulsa to go see that show. My uncle had got him tickets for his birthday, and so they have really great seats. And they came up to where we live, stopped by to say hi before the concert. And they were like, "Corey, you should come with us. Like, you should find a ticket and go." And I just turned 16, so I was like, you know what? Who knows? Willie could die tomorrow. I better go see him. I didn't know that 10, 15 years later he'd still be touring, But that was my thought. I was like, he's a living legend. I'd love to see him. So I went to the event center, and all the tickets were, the people trying to sell them out front. They were asking ridiculous amounts. So I waited about 10 minutes after the show started, and somebody walked up and was like, "I'll give you this ticket for $10." I was like, "That's the only ticket I can afford. Here we go." So I walked in, went to my seat, and I was way up in the nosebleeds. And I was like, it's probably a 7,500 to 10,000 person venue, but I was the last seat. I was like, this is not how I want to see Willie Nelson. And up until this point in my life, every show I went to ever, I was just like, that should be me up there. I could not enjoy a show because I wanted to be up there so bad. And so I would always mentally play out the scenario. If somehow I ended up on stage tonight, would I be ready? What would I do? Would I do it well? And I would go to a John Mayer show, or I would go to a Keith Urban show, or a Garth Brooks show, and I would always have this recurring thought of, what would I do if I got the chance right now? Well, Willie was in town. I was at this show, and I had that same moment, and I was just like, something feels different about tonight. So I just listened to this voice in the back of my head, went down to the concession stand, asked this sweet lady for a piece of cardboard she grabbed one out of the trash behind the concession stand, and I was like, I got one more favor. Can you find me a pen or a Sharpie or something? And they had one, and I wrote, "It's my dream to play a song with you." And I told you that it was Willie Nelson and Maker's Mark for my grandpa. Well, my grandpa, when he goes to a Willie show, he brings his own Maker's Mark, okay? So he is gone. He's third row because it's his birthday, and my uncle bought him nice tickets. My uncle calls me. He's like, "Hey, I need a break. You got to come take care of your grandpa. I'm going to go take a lap." So I walked down and sat in that third row seat, and you got to have the wristband to get down on the floor. And I was like, if I just walk in there like I own the place, I've seen this a million times. It'll work. Nobody will say anything. So I just walked down there, sat there with my sign, and held it up. And Willie leaned over and he grabbed his red bandana and threw it at me like, all right, kid, put the sign down, but glad you're here. So I took the bandana and I put it in my pocket. And then he leaned over again. After I put the sign back up, he leans over again and throws me another bandana like, for real, kid, you got to put the sign down. So I gave it to my grandpa, and I held the sign back up. And the third time he leaned over and he goes, all right, kid, what do you want to sing? And I said, Milk Cow Blues. And his eyes got real wide, and I failed to mention he threw the bandana again, but he eventually was like, so I had a third bandana. And I turned around and I apologized to the guy behind me for how much I was holding that sign up, and I gave him that bandana. And he said, what do you want to play? I said, Milk Cow Blues. He goes, well, get up here. And so, they play it in A, and I knew that he knew that song, and I knew that nobody wanted to hear a no-name kid from Oklahoma sing a Willie, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain or Whiskey River. So I was like, I want to sing a song that won't interfere with his set. And so he brought me up and sang the song, and I'll never forget, he had no idea if I could sing or not. So he's like ready to basically take over. He's leaning up against his mic, and he goes, what's your name? I said, Corey. He goes, everybody, this is Corey. And the crowd cheers, and he goes, take it away. And I walk up and I start singing the first verse, and well, I woke up this morning, and he got this big grin on his face, dude. And he just backed away from the mic and gave me the nod of approval and just let me take the song. And I remember going, there's no way when I go back to school on Monday that anybody's going to believe this. My grandpa's blackout in the third row. He's not going to, he's not a viable witness. My uncle's taking a lap. I don't know if he saw this. Nobody my age is in the Willie Nelson show. And so I tried to take out my flip phone or whatever I had at the time and take a picture on stage during the little instrumental section. And I was so shaky that it just turned out horrible. And it was a blur. It was amazing. And then I went and sat back in my seat. And this is the funniest, craziest part of the whole story, is that when I sat down and I'm having that thought of I can't believe that just happened. Nobody's going to believe me. The guy, I get a tap on the shoulder, and I turn around, and it was the guy that I've been pissing off with the sign all night. And he goes, are you going to keep that sign down now? And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, well, good, because here's my card. I got the whole thing on film. He had a handy cam. The only footage that exists of that moment exists from the guy that was right behind me.
So you put it out now?
So, yeah, it's on YouTube. You can go see it. I mean, it's super bad
How old
quality,
were you?
but I was 16.
Okay, now I got to go.
And it changed my life. It changed my life. Go ahead.
I'm going to watch it tonight.
Yo, you're going to check it out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were about to give me a Willie story.
Oh, no, I got plenty of Willie stories.
But that set me less than a year later. I decided when I was 17, I graduated high school a year early so that I could move to Nashville and write some songs and learn how to craft a good song. And because I knew that's what Willie did, right? I knew he moved out there and wrote songs, so that's all I knew to do. And then, full circle, I ended up pulling a Willie and moving back to Texas, and then my music career took off. So he's really... he has no idea the impact that he had on me, but just that one night, giving that kid a chance, it inspired everything.
He's done such great stuff for everybody. My second record, I'd written a song called All the Tequila in Tijuana, and I just asked him to do it, and he's like, sure. I was like, really?
Wow.
And how about Tuesday? Okay. We're recording it at the studio he's owned out there in Pedernales, out there in Spotswood, and sure enough, he showed up right on time. Saying he's like, I'm a little sick, but he played solo on Trigger on it, and I was like, this is really cool. He didn't have to do that for some upstart kid,
No, not at all.
and so it's really cool, and we played many shows with him over the years, and always, has some great, everybody's got some great Willie on the bus stories,
Yep. Wow.
I don't think it's something we can tell in public right now, but.
Yeah, probably not. Probably for the best. What's going on in the music scene right now that you like? What acts do you listen to, new or old, but just what does Kevin Fowler listen to on a Saturday by the pool?
Oh, and I'm a big metalhead.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started out playing heavy metal. If you Google me up, go to Kevin Fowler, Dangerous Toys, it'll pull up pictures of me playing in an 80s hair metal band. And I did that. I did the hair metal thing about 10 years. And if you Google it up, there's all kinds of it's everywhere out there. You cannot run your past. But so I still listen to a lot of. I just flew all the way up to Seattle to see a band called Queensryche, they were big before you were even born, and I still go to a lot of metal shows. Usually see Judas Priest once a year.
Okay.
Went to Iron Maiden last year. I'm still a metalhead at heart.
Yeah.
And so one thing me and Cody Jinks have in common, we know the same bands. I was listening to his thing there on his podcast. He was talking about all the stuff he likes. I'm still a metalhead. I'm still that kid that loves to go to a show and just be geek out on the band. But as far as the Texas Red Dirt stuff, there's so much great stuff coming out right now. It's hard to even keep up with it. Mm-hmm. I'm so proud of all these young kids that like Randall King. Randall King's been playing this forever. We're both from Amarillo, Texas, and seeing him just, he's just finally get some traction and just kicking ass. And out there on the road, and all these young kids. I feel like an old grandpa, proud old grandpa now. Saying, these kids.
It's got to be cool.
These young kids coming up, and it's been really cool just being a fly on the wall for the last 24 years, seeing what it has turned into. I feel like I'm very proud of what all of us have built. This juggernaut that is Texas country and Texas Red Dirt. And it's kind of melded into Texas Red Dirt now. It used to be Red Dirt, and then they all moved down here, so now it's all Texas Red Dirt. And
I remember when I started playing this scene. After from Oklahoma, moved out to Nashville, wrote songs for other people. I was writing songs actually for this guy right here, William Clark Green. I was writing songs for his record, and he had a #1 in Texas with a song that I wrote. And then I was writing songs with Brandon Jenkins, and it was the title track to his last record. And I remember being in Nashville and going, nobody here cares about what I'm doing, but it's working down there, like for all of my friends. So I packed up and moved my family back here, and I just have really seen a difference in the camaraderie. Like, this is a really tight-knit circle of artists. But I remember Randy, he gave me kind of my first few opportunities to open up for him. That same situation where it's like, I took the show, but I was paying my guys each more than I made that whole night. And Randy brought me up on his bus and he goes, man, you know what? You either need to get arrested or tell everybody you're from Oklahoma. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, you got to stick out somehow. Stop trying to fit in Texas and just be the Okie. And I thought that would be easier than getting arrested. So that's what we did. And cheaper than getting arrested at the time. And that's what we did. And that's, the thing that kind of started to set us apart in the Texas Red Dirt scene was we were like one of the only bands that wasn't from Texas, and people started going, that's that crew of Oklahoma kids, right? Yeah. And anyway, I love, like you said, I'm proud of what this scene is, and I think it's got a long history still to write. Obviously, we're carrying a torch, and
it's gotten bigger. It's gotten huge. It's gotten, it's spilled over, and just seeing all the guys like Flatland and all these guys that are out there. I mean, it's too many bands to even mention. The bands are just killing it right now.
Yep, it's become the thing. Like
Charlie Crockett, man, you can turn on anything. He's the king of media. It's everywhere I look, I see Charlie Crockett. And all these guys that are just actually national. They're touring, not a national, worldwide. Doing the Europe thing, and it's pretty wild how it's just come a million miles in 24 years.
Well, we appreciate
it's been a cool ride.
Yeah, all the guys that built the scene. Like, there would be no scene without.
Well, and you're just building the next guy, and then everybody just keeps on, bringing in the next round. Someday you'll be the 58-year-old guy on this end of the mic going, well, I remember back in 2024.
I hope when I'm 58, I've built half the music career and the real estate portfolio that you have, man. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Let me come in here and harass you a little bit. And it's good to finally meet you.
You too.
We hear a lot about you. We have the same management company, and I was talking about you around the shop, and it's cool to finally meet you. And we got a cool little stable of artists on there. Another one, William Beckman. He's over 888 now. And see what he's doing. He's on that juggernaut like you are, just hanging on both hands. It's just, those are really cool years, like 2000, like 2012. We're just on this rocket ship. It was so cool. It's such a fun ride. You guys are on that rocket ship and riding it, and
Trying to hold
you got
on.
to hold on that sucker and
Trying to
just
hold on.
trying to keep your home life together and keep your band life together. And
We didn't even get
and
into
it's,
that.
it's
but
exciting and fun, and
It's the whole thing.
it's the energy. So
Well,
enjoy the
thanks,
ride.
man. Thank you so much for talking with me, and can't wait to catch your set.
Hell yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Right on.